Okay, so first of all, I want to say that I'm sorry if we have some background noise. We're just sailing, so we decided to use the opportunity and finally record this Q&A session. We are using our wonderful marriage saver.
Marriage savers.
For as microphone, so I hope you can hear us well. First question, how do we make water?
We have 600 liters of tanks. We have a water maker that's supposed to make, it's a pretty old one, but it's supposed to make around 60 liters an hour. It works on solar panels, so we don't have to use a generator for it. We're running it around 3 hours a day, 2-3 hours a day, so we're making around 120, 150, I think, liters a day.
We don't really look for the consumption, but we do make sure that we try to use as little fresh water as we can, so we utilize the seawater as much as possible. We wash our dishes in seawater, we take showers in seawater, and we only rinse in fresh water. Kids know that they need to close the tap when they brush their teeth and wash their hands, and we try to watch for the amount that we're using, but we don't really have a concrete number that we look for. How did you learn which fish you can eat and which you shouldn't? And I will let the marine biologist answer this one.
Well, as a marine biologist, as a specialist, I don't know anything about fish because I don't remember it. And but we do know that certain fish, like everybody else, when we catch, let's say tuna, we're like, yay, tuna for us, this is really good. When we catch mahi-mahi or something else that everybody eats, so we like it. But let's say barracuda, we know that barracuda can have something inside that it's not good for you, so we don't use barracuda or we just throw it away. But generally the kids don't eat fish, they don't like it, so we don't consume a lot of fish or almost at all. We eat more chicken and beef. So even if we catch something, we prefer to catch something small because only two of us gonna eat something and the kids are not. And yeah, we don't have freezer, so we don't want to catch something really big.
Okay, in general, how do you provision? So we go to the supermarket and we buy, and before we know if we're leaving an island that we know that it's cheaper to buy stuff there, so we'll buy more. Everything dry that we can keep in the boat because, as Sergey mentioned before, we don't have a freezer.
As the one who does most of the shoppings, we buy chicken or beef, we buy for 2-3 days, and this is how we know that we're gonna stop in several places and we're gonna buy it. We can make bread by ourselves, so if we don't have bread, we just make bread. We know exactly like at home, like each and one of you at home, you know approximately how much your kids are eating and how much you're eating and what you eat. That's it, that's how we buy, but we don't buy for long term, we buy for short term for 2-3 days ahead.
And that includes for fruits and vegetables as well, because we get them, if we can get fruits and vegetables, we take what we can. We don't always have the opportunity to buy everything here. In the Caribbean, not everything is always available, so we try to get what we can. Okay, next question. Have you ever adjusted parts of your journey or changed destination, timing based on presence of friends who were also sailing? The answer is no. So far, until this part of the journey, we didn't really have boat friends that we traveled with. We are new to that. We met many boats with kids back in Grenada, so traveling with other boats like we are doing right now is something that is new to us. We do know where they're going, where they're heading, so we have this pit stop that we all know about, specific dates that everyone plans to be in the same place, so we try to aim to that and meet them there. But other than that, we're not really changing any plans because of friends. We can always meet up later, unless they're doing something really cool that we want to join them, and in that case we might change it.
We do anchor in the same places if we're on the way, of course, and there are people that we know that are in the bay that we're crossing.
Have you ever chosen to sail together with neighbors, friends' boats to stay together for more than one destination? Yes, we're new to that. We're only starting with it now. Right now we're doing a crossing of 22 hours, and we have two other boats, friends, that are right next to us, an additional one which is about 10 miles away. So we are sailing together, and it's pretty cool, I have to say. It's really fun. How do you establish connection with other liveaboards families? A Facebook group called Kids for Sail, and when we got to the Caribbean we were added to another WhatsApp group for sailing families, and when we got to Grenada we created another one for Grenada kids. So you always know where the boats are, and just like in any other community, some of the boats you get better relationship with and some of the boats you don't. So when you find those friends that you want to keep sailing with, you just hang out together and you do start planning out things together.
Most of how we established most of the connections that we have now, it was because of Grenada. We spent the hurricane season in Grenada, and most of the boat kids were there. So we just were part of a community of kids that were sitting and waiting for the hurricane season to end. And the kids have friends now, and they speak English, which they didn't speak at all before we get to Grenada. And that's amazing for us and for the kids too.
Okay, next one. How do your children cope with extended stays on the boat? I can show you. Like this. That's what they do. They can do it for 20 hours straight. Do you sometimes anchor in specific places or change your location according to the children's need for activities outside of the boat?
Of course we do. A lot of things that we do is for our children, because they don't like the sailing and they don't like the exploring the ocean. They do like it, but they like to be in places. So we're trying to get it shorter, the passage is shorter, and if we know there is a cool place to stay somewhere, so we do it. For instance, a week ago we've been to this place in Guadeloupe that has a really great playground, and we just stopped there because we knew there's a really good playground.
What does your daily routine look like, and what about nighttime routine? So daily routine is that the kids wake up at 6, and with our morning coffee we already start school. We try to do school for 5 days a week. So we do school, we jump to the water, we sail a little bit, we have lunch, and we meet with friends usually afternoons at the beach or on their boats. The one thing that we do change is when we want to go and travel or do something that is a bit different. In that case we might do less school or move the school to another day that we usually don't study.
At the nighttime, that's exactly like at home, like on land. They're going to brush their teeth, they're reading a book, or we are reading them a book, and they just go to sleep. That's it.
Okay, did you plan from the outset how long you intended to live on the boat? If we're going to keep it as a boat, as a home, or are we going to end it at one time? So originally we talked about 2 years, and we're already a year and a half into our amazing journey. We don't know when this journey will end. We're having some conversations about it, but we're trying to avoid it as much as we can. We try not to plan for more than one season ahead, because we know that things changes, life change, weather change, people change, dreams can change as well. How do you manage boat school? We have our 3 boys are 4th grade, 2nd grade, and kindergarten. We take the curriculum that they have back home. We got the books that they study with. Unfortunately, we don't have an online program that we can just go and log in, so it is something that we need to follow with the books. We do language, math, and English. English is something that we started for everyone at the same time. We created this curriculum every day, what we're going to do, and we try to do 2 subjects a day and an app. So in addition to the books, we have English app, we have math app, and now we also started a really cool coding app. So they do that. It's not always easy. It's not always going smooth.
And the next question is, how do you manage health matters? Do you feel that you get sick less because you have less contact with other people? Definitely, less contact is less sick. I think we can see it more because when we were living on land, the kids were going to school. The first days of school, they were coming back with everything, every sickness that you can find, and they were sick for a week, and then you are sick for a week, and then the other kids sick for a week.
But I think that you could see the change when we sailed just us. We were not sick for a year, but then when we met all the other
Yes.
boats and we started hanging out with more kids and more boats, then all of a sudden we got all that sickness and stuff.
Next question is, do you keep a constant stock of medicines, antibiotics, etc., just in case?
Yes, a big stock.
Yeah. Well, our stock, I think, was before we left home. We went to a few doctors, and they just prescribed to us everything that they can think of, from antibiotics and creams and everything for everything that they can think. We also bought IV that I can do an IV, and what else?
That's it. We got lots of stuff, and then we either call our doctors back home, describe the situation, and they recommend what to take, or we go to a local doctor, and then we show them what we have, and then we take one of ours instead of buying a new one. Or if we have friends or a boat with a doctor on board, which happens, so we can also ask them and thank you if you helped us.
Are there symptoms that recur more frequently due to spending more time in the water? Yes, I think ear infections is most recurring for all of us.
We even got an ear fungus, which was a new thing for us. So apparently if you're in humid environment, then you might get it, and then you will have recurring ear infections all the time. So that's the first sign. And then you're prohibited from going into the water for about 3 weeks, which is pretty hard when you live on a boat, so that sucks. But yeah, I would say that, but also in the pools back in Grenada, lots of impetigo from the kids. So that was recurring all the time, which is a skin infection. So impetigo was also very common. So I would recommend taking cream for, make sure that you have a cream for impetigo and lots of ear drops for ear infections.
Do you experience seasickness? How do you cope with it? For me, I less experience seasickness. I experience seasickness only in really mild waves that can be just even on land. The kids do have it. Gal, our oldest, he has seasickness most of the passages because of the waves, but I think once he throws up, it's like he's a new kid and that's it. Bar, our second kid, doesn't care about anything. As long as he's playing something, he doesn't care. And I think the third one, he has
He gets tired.
seasickness, he gets tired and he just goes to sleep.
I get seasickness. This is why most of the sails I spent in the help station, which is where we drive. So I keep my head out, and most of the times I'm okay.
Yeah, so we cope with it mostly by looking out and being upstairs or being out, just to look out and not being inside. So we try minimize doing stuff, even cooking and stuff on passages. We try to do it before we start a passage. How do you manage internet access in the middle of the sea? We have Starlink. We have it already a year, and we had it from Spain. We crossed the ocean with it, and we managed, and so far, all the Caribbeans with it. It's an amazing thing. Everyone who thinks buying it, don't think about it, just buy it. We have internet through our phones, which we pay to Digicel in the Caribbean. And the third thing that we have, it's not really internet, but it's an Iridium Go system, which is more satellite internet, very, very, very slow. But this system is more reliable in the ocean. So if you're crossing the ocean, maybe it is a thing to buy, but it's only for downloading weather and stuff, and not being on Facebook or watching Netflix, which we did with Starlink in the middle of the ocean.
I think that generally Starlink is better if you need to work because it gives you better reception most of the time. The Digicel, the local cell phone provider, they come and go, so it depends on the physical location that you're at and the island itself on how good the communication will be. So for work, I would definitely say Starlink and Starlink.
Okay, next question is, what do you do for work, and how is it possible to work from remote locations or in the sea? The GIS specialist is Geographic Information Systems. So I have a small business back home, and they just send me projects, and I'm working on the projects. I'm doing my work mostly local on my computer.
I'm doing product and OKR coaching for businesses, and I have customers worldwide, so I'm doing lots of Zoom calls and present stuff using Miraboard, so I do need the connectivity. Starlink is definitely a must-have for me, for my work.
I just want to say about that specific question is one of the most questions that we get asked a lot. How do we make money and how do we work? So the goal is not to touch our savings at all. What we make now is good for us just to maintain our lifestyle and not to touch our savings. We are trying to work a few hours a day, and that's enough for us.
The goal is to live and not, so it's not work-life balance, it's life-work balance, and so we work for the day-to-day and not in order to have savings. So.
Do the batteries provide enough power to run the computer for extended work hours, or do you manage children's activities and games differently? Okay, computers. We have two laptops on board, which is our workstation, and during the day we are charging our computers because we have the solar panels that are charging. And during the evening, when we don't have solar panels or solar power, we can charge it through a generator.
If we need more than a couple of hours work, we will need to turn on the generator in order to make sure that we have enough batteries.
Yeah. So and
Games for
the games, yeah. So we have the Nintendo Switch, which the kids can charge it during the day, and they just can play on the Nintendo Switch battery.
But once the sun comes down, we prefer not to power the TV because it is consuming lots of energy, so that's the restriction. So our electricity system, we have two battery banks, and we have one side that is dedicated to the AC, all the electronics that we have on the boat.
220, 220 volts.
Yeah. And on the other side we have the DC, which is all the navigations and the lights and the boat.
All the 12 volts.
All the 12. Both sides we have lead acid batteries, so we don't have lithium yet. Maybe there's a conversation around that. Maintenance.
How many hours do you spend weekly on maintenance? Do you feel overwhelmed, or do things generally meet your expectations? I think me especially, because I was watching YouTube channels about sailors and everything, and it's always looks, because it's always in frames, it's not, you're not watching all their lives, but it's every time it's in frame that somebody is fixing somewhere something, and it looks like you're all the time fixing stuff on the boat. Things do break, things stop working, we have a list of jobs that we need to do, but most of the time, most of the list is not things that you need to do it right now. So you postpone things by your budget or by the things that you need right now. But for us, I think we're not working, most of the time we're not working on the boat. We're doing small changes and small stuff.
Small stuff. But I have to say, I was very overwhelmed, especially on the first month on the boat. We had tons of issues that we needed to fix. And ever since then, every once in a while, there's like tons of stuff. It feels like tons of stuff, but it's enough that we have 2 or 3 important things that need to be fixed. And it always overwhelms me how when one thing breaks, it always going to change. So you know you're going to have at least 2 other things that you will need to fix because it always comes together.
What is your thought process when planning transitions between destinations? Do you wait for suitable weather conditions? After all, these conditions can change unexpectedly. Or do the charts provide enough information? Okay, it's a tricky question. It's a few-part question. One is where you are. Let's start with where you are. In the Med, it doesn't matter where you sail into the wind all the time, and it was really unexpected. You can be from 10 to 50, 60 knots of wind. And
the charts are always wrong.
Yeah, and the charts are always wrong. I don't know why. For us, Med was like that. In the Caribbean, you know where the wind comes from. It mostly comes from the Atlantic, and it's almost all the time the same conditions. But there are a little bit more waves, a little bit less waves, a little bit more wind, less wind. So you just sit and wait for the our perfect window to cross between islands.
It's also a preference. Like
Yeah.
we prefer having lower waves, even if it costs us the speed of the wind.
Yeah. Sometimes, if the waves are pretty high, we will not go, and we prefer to run the motor sometimes. And the other part of the question, well, all the apps, we have few apps there that we are using. We are using Windy, and we're using Predict Wind, and we're using NOAA, which is the website, and we use few websites in the specific region, and this is really enough for us to know.
The models usually show pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I think in the Med the differences were really, really big between the different models. So you go out there and you just see which one is right, and if it's not good enough, you just turn around and go back to
Yeah.
safety.
And also you can see like other sailors, because you can see other boats. If everyone is leaving now to the other island, so probably it's okay. Okay. Are you constantly connected to GPS to know your location and get real-time weather updates? You wanna go?
Well, we have Starlink, so we look at it when we think we need, but usually if you have few hours sail, then you don't really need to check the weather all the time. I think it's mostly for longer crossing. Even the crossing from Gibraltar to the Canary Islands, we had to check the weather twice a day or once a day, so for that you will need connectivity to
Some
something.
sort of communication, yeah.
And GPS, well, we use Navionics more than we actually use the chart plot on the boat, which is a pretty old one. So we use Navionics. We always know where we are. So that's definitely a yes.
Have you invested in navigation studies beyond the qualification required as a skipper? It's a good question. It's my opinion only as a skipper. I'm a skipper almost 20 years. I don't think I've ever used the chart. So for me, let's say something happens, I would probably remember if I have a chart, but we don't have physical charts on the boat. So for us, yeah, we rely mostly on GPS. But I have to say about that, the skipper license, when I did it more than 20 years ago, the skipper license didn't think about GPS at all. But now in the real world, when we are sailing now a lot, we don't use charts at all. Everything is GPS. everything is internet. Probably if the internet is disconnected and GPS, we are in big trouble, but we're pretty close to the shore. We're not gonna do any passage if we have the problem with it. What percentage motoring and what percentage sailing?
It depends on the sail, I think.
Depends on the sail, on the wind.
know-
We don't have a percentage, we don't know, but
As we said before, if the waves are too high, we won't go to sea. Even if the wind is good, we prefer lower wind and shorter waves or lower waves.
in the Caribbean, if you go on the leeward side, you're probably gonna be motoring, even if it's a little bit. And on the windward side, you're probably gonna be sailing. So, but you're gonna have a lot of waves. So, it is our preference. Our preference is to have smoother sail, and sometimes we prefer to motor. Yeah. Do you regularly keep a reserve of diesel fuel to power the engines beyond the requirement amount per trip?
Yes.
We have a little bit. Yes, we have 20 liters of diesel as a spare, but it's here in the Caribbean because we have like five-hour sail, and you're on the other island, and you can get fuel. When we were crossing the Atlantic, we had four canisters of 20 liters as a spare diesel, and we have 400 liters of diesel in our tanks. And we have for the dinghy fuel, just a regular fuel, unleaded, we have 10 liters as a spare. Do you often sail through the night, or do you choose to anchor in the middle of the sea overnight to continue with the sunrise?
So here in the Caribbean, we don't really have long sails that requires overnight. We might prefer it if it's longer because then the kids could sleep. It is tougher for us because if we need to engage with the kids the day after and do everything on the boat like we slept the whole night, it's pretty much impossible if we didn't sleep all night. So we do prefer not doing night overs if we don't have to. Today we're actually doing one. It's a fun time to explain about that.
Yeah, today we're doing a night passage, but because we know that the conditions are very good, and because we know that the moon is full moon, so it's very bright night. The whole night is going to be bright, so we really like these passages, like bright passages and beautiful and like calm weather. If it was stormy, if it was without moon, without light, we would probably go and anchor somewhere for the night and then proceed the day after.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you encountered extremely stormy conditions at sea, especially when you're not in the harbor? Okay, so
Yes.
yes, we had a Corsica storm a year ago in August 2022. We had a storm that hit us on an anchor. While we were an anchor in the morning, we had around 110 knots, which is a lot. It's like a hurricane that crossed we dragged a little bit, but we were really okay. There are a lot of boats that weren't okay.
We have a video about it, and I'm putting the link right here now.
Especially for that, we have a video for that. Yeah.
In other cases, we did get stormy weather here in the Caribbean, so we got hit by 46 knots gust. So gusts do happen. They can get pretty strong.
You have the weather all the time, you know what's going to happen, and because the Caribbean, everything is pretty close, so you can go and hide somewhere else. And if a hurricane is coming during the hurricane season, you can see it a few days before it's going to come to you most of the time. So it's pretty okay with the weather apps and everything.
If you are going to anchor, my recommendation is make sure that you have an anchor that you trust. That when you drop the anchor, make sure that do strong reverse to make sure that it caught well. And if the gust hits you, then just go be at the helm station, make sure that you're not dragging or the boats around you are not dragging, because I think that the boats around you are more scary than your boat itself, because you don't have control over them. So that's my tip.
Okay. Is a additional certification required beyond the ICC international certification? And if something required through docking in the marina and and insurance? I don't think that someone ever asked for my skipper license anywhere in the world, except when we were chartering boats in Greece. When we had insurance, nobody cared about skipper licenses or nothing, and we had two insurance companies, and they didn't ask for my or our skipper license. They do need the certification for the boat and everything, but they don't ask about that. And not in the marinas. Nobody asks the marinas about your skipper license. The only thing that they want in the marina is just the certification of the boat and the insurance. That's it.
Next one. Have you encountered security procedures by coast guards or similar authorities when they requested boarding your vessel? So the only time when we had that encounter was in Italy. We had it twice.
Day after day, I think.
Day after day, yeah. Just when we got the kids into bed, so they woke up. They didn't ask to come on board to the boat. They just asked to see the certifications and make sure that we're legal in Europe. So that was the only thing that they needed. It took about 15 minutes and they were done, and we had to put the kids to bed again. Okay.
Okay, it's a very important question. How did you know before the purchase that the boat was in mechanically sufficient condition? And how did you avoid purchasing something that would require an unreasonable amount of budget and work? Okay, so I can answer part of that. So we checked the boat before we bought it. We checked with the surveyor that he came to the boat and he checked most of the things. Of course, he didn't check everything. Of course, we missed a lot of things. We didn't check like 100% of the boat, but we checked 90% of the boat, and that was good for us, especially the most expensive things and the most crucial things. Yeah, that was because this is our first boat.
Yeah, I think that if it was today, we would have checked it more thoroughly. We did miss obvious things like the life raft that was out of order. So basic things that we didn't even know that we needed to check, and we had no ability to actually know if the surveyor that had some recommendation, if he was really good or not. So maybe today we would have done it a bit differently. And learn about boats and the model a bit more before we go and check it, because there are sicknesses that are known for specific models, and you can avoid them if you're checking it before you buy.
But generally, most of the things we only saw one boat, which is that.
Yeah.
If you buy a boat and you know which model do you want to buy, please go into any Facebook group for this model especially, and check all the weaknesses that you need to look at specific to the model.
Yeah. I think another comment is that we didn't buy ours through a broker.
What else do you do during the boat acquisition process, preparing it for the journey and estimating the budget for the trip?
Regarding how do you plan and prepare it for the journey, you need to understand what type of sailor you are. So that will define what electricity you need, if you need solar panels, how big they should be, if you need lithium or not lithium. It will define a lot of the changes that you might do and renovation that you might want to do, not always. So that depends on what kind of sailing you want to do. Is it a full liveaboard boat? Is it just for vacations? Is it for charter? So that's a big question. Regarding the budget,
the rule of thumb was for the maintenance. It was around 10% of the value of the boat. It's the 10% of that you will need to maintain every year. Every year. So
it's average for a month, and then we added on that the health insurance and the boat insurance, and we got to some estimation of about $5,000 US dollars that we assume we will need per month in order to live.
And this
Good.
assumption was pretty much good because we are pretty much in the same
Yeah. A year
budget.
and a half into that, and we can say for sure that some months you pay much more than that, and some months less than that. But on the average, it does get to about that price for us with our boat.
To this question, the budget thing is especially where you are. You decide to take the break from sailing. Do you simply move the boat in designated places? What are the average costs extended mooring like this? We had a break, let's say, in Martinique when we left the boat there for a month when we were flying back home to visit the families, and it costs us the mooring ball that we put the boat on around 150 euros for the month, just to put the boat on the mooring. It was very good for us.
An option that some people do is they do put it on an anchor and then they get a boat sitter to sit on the boat and make sure that it's okay. It's also a possibility.
And another possibility is if you want to check your boat, if you want to paint the bottom and everything, you can put your boat on the hard and let someone to do the job while you are flying somewhere to vacation. How do you secure your boat when you know you won't be on it for several weeks? It's not about security. When, as I told before, we were on a mooring ball, let's say in Martinique, so it pretty much secured to a mooring ball. But we need to pickle our water maker. There are a lot of procedures that you need to do before you leave your boat. Not because of the security, it's more for to not get any fungus on the boat or mold or whatever you want to do. So you need to put your boat in good conditions before you leave.
If you could go back to the beginning of your journey, what advice would you give yourself?
Wow.
That's an amazing question. I would do a mechanical course to understand the boat parts better. I'm not a skipper, and if I had a chance to be a skipper or to learn more mechanical things, it would be the mechanical things, because we do need to fix a lot of things, and I think that it would save us a lot of time and pain if I knew things better and not just learn as we go. So that's for me.
I don't know, I would probably understand more the boat stuff, but that's not it. For us, because we know now the life of a sailor, full-time sailor, you know what things you need more. So let's say for us, we would need more power, battery power and solar panels and everything. So we would probably look into that before we buy a boat, or we probably leave a budget for that specific thing.
Yeah, for the upgrades.
For the updates for that.
We did a lot of work back in Spain before we crossed the Atlantic, and we spent a lot of money on that work, and I think that looking back today, we would have funneled that money better if we had known the boat better and our plan better. So we would have changed some stuff and not others, and we would definitely pick the right team to do that.
And on the next boat, we're probably gonna know better.
Yeah, the conversation is always on our next boat, so they're probably gonna be our next boat. Okay, so that were all the questions that we got for this Q&A session. I hope we helped you guys to get to know us better and answered some of them. If you do have more questions, ask anything and we will answer.